Hi.
Welcome everyone. So this talk is called How I Found the One Timeline Where My Passion Project Didn't Die. And in this talk I'll go over the timeline of the project, the passion project itself, and why I think it hasn't died yet, because it still needs to be released. It's going to be hard to kill at this point. So I divided the talk into 4 chapters to make it both easier for me and for you. So let's start off with who am I? So I'm Celine Veltman, and I do a lot of types of art, but in general I'm most active in the games industry. And there I like to do game design and game art. And when I talk about my passion project, I talk about this. It's called Curiosmos, and I've been making this since 2022 with a small team. And it's a cute game about the creation of solar systems and planets. And the gameplay is very inspired by games like Bottom, Wobble Dogs, and Digital Bird Playground. I don't know if you know it. But in these games, there's not necessarily a big goal to achieve, but it's a lot about like exploring, playing around, and like city gameplay. So let's watch the teaser trailer. So here you create a planet. This is your solar system. And then you can play on the planet and make different types of planets. And you'll meet a robot. You can do evolution, create an atmosphere. This is your sun. There's Curio again. Yeah, so Celine and the City Stars. So, chapter 1, everything that happened before Curiosmos that I think gives some important background details. So right after game school, I studied game art at the HKU. I had one dream, and that was to make silly games surrounded by my friends. And this dream came true. So this is the building that we were sitting in, the last one, the last location. And we call it Boomhut, which means treehouse in Dutch. And here we are all together making our own silly little games. And this was a really great era for me. I was making a lot of prototypes, and I'll show you a couple. So this is a flower breeding game that I made with my illustrator friends, or a flower breeding prototype, where I did the programming, surprisingly. And this is was going to be a visual novel about the life of a dandelion that meets little bugs and then talks with them, and they talk back, and they talk about life problems. I also started working on the Merlies, which is a game about like little birds in a post-apocalyptic world, and they make like nice little buildings out of trash. I was going to be art directing, but in the end I ended up mostly doing concept art because it seemed that I was best at that. So I'll show you a couple of images. This is like the tree house that I drew, where the little birds were living in, and these are like buildings that they would make from trash. And these are like the communities that they have. They all have like different regions. A lot of fun. I also started working on Celine 2 together with Timon from Sock Pop. It never saw the light, but it was a really nice project to work on, I think. I was really happy with the visual style that I achieved. I also made this weird little like space game. Maybe it seems very familiar. But things were going kind of slow, and as you might understand, that making prototypes all the time doesn't earn a lot of money. But around this time, luckily, my friend Adrian de Jong asked me if I wanted to make DLCs for his game. And he made Hidden Folks. Ooh. And it's a black and white Where is Waldo that is interactive. And there I worked on the level design, and together with him I made 2 DLCs. So this is the beach area, and this is the music area. And this was a really great project for me because Adrian taught me a lot about like game design, but also about production, and he gave me like a really nice perspective on how to do that. But also very important, it gave me some savings.
Yeah.
So I could go back after this to making my own silly little games. So, we're already at chapter 2. This chapter is about creating your own luck and putting yourself in situations where this luck can arise and finding nice opportunities. So one opportunity arisen where I was asked to present or do a talk at Anifilm and be the judge. And Anifilm is a really nice film festival in the Czech Republic, and they had a game section. And there I met some really great game designers whose work I adored. And there I was having a beer with them, talking about the prototypes I made. And one of the people there gave me some realization. And that was that, why don't I make one of the prototypes I was making together with a team? And this thought had never occurred to me. And I also thought it was a bit of a long shot. I would have to lead a project, people. I was only doing solo projects before that. But I also thought, like, the least I could do is try. So that's what I did, and the first step was to find a programmer. So I went to Indigo, which is like a Dutch game industry event, and there I was hoping to find this programmer. I didn't, but I did meet up with Alessandra, and I told her about my ambitious plans. And she said, you know what you should do, Celine? There's this amazing fund in Flanders. And for the people who don't know, Flanders is like this yellow region that you can see in Belgium, where they all speak Dutch. Then you also have Wallonia, where they speak French. You have Brussels, where they speak both, and it also has its own government. And then there's also like a German-speaking region. It's real complex. Anyway, Flanders has the FAF Fund. And at the time, they were having an open call for collaborations between Belgium and the Netherlands. Great opportunity, I thought. The only thing I need to do is to find myself a Belgian programmer. Well, the problem was, I didn't know any, and the deadline for this fund was also pretty close by. So if I wanted to start this and not wait another half a year, then I needed to do it now. So I had to start searching. So you remember this project with the tiny birds? It's a Parisian project, and he asked me, yo, Celine, are you coming to Games Camp? And Games Camp is a developer event in Lille. It's very French speaking, and I do speak some French, but nearly not enough for like full-on talks with complicated language. But I also thought like I could see the Merlies team, and I could meet up with my French friend Delphine Fourneau, and I've never seen Lille, so it seemed like a nice trip. So off I go, and at Lille, I did a couple of things. First I caught COVID really badly there, but I also ended up seeing Delphine, and I also talked with her about my plans, you know, to start this project. I was like, hey, do you know any Belgian game developers? Because I needed a starting point. And she said, well, not really, actually. I only know Joan, maybe you can ask him. So that was my only need, and I shot him a message. It's like, yo, Joan, do you know any programmers? He was like, no, but I know Pepijn, and Pepijn is also quite networked, so you can ask him. So I shoot Pepijn a message, and it turns out that Pepijn is also really good at programming and was interested himself. So Pepijn and I meet up, and we get along quite well together, and we start working together. So the one thing, finding a programmer, I succeeded in. Now only 1.5 months for this really thick application. So I do a little crunch. And voila, by the end of that, I had almost written a small book. And 1 month later, we had the news that we got the money. We could make a prototype of this game. And that's how I went from within 4 months for just having like a passion idea to starting development with a programmer. And I think that is due to like having a really good drive and being ambitious, which I think doesn't really lack in the games industry. But I also think it has to do with me putting myself in situations like game events and talking to people, so that this luck and finding opportunities can arise. And I saw some, and I took them. So now we go off to chapter 3, where I talk about the game development. And I'll show you like how Curiosmos progressed, which only like started from just an idea. Pepijn does the programming, I do all the rest, so the art, design, communication, organization. This is great for me because I really like diversity in my work. So off we go. So when I had this idea in 2018, I wrote all the things down immediately, and of this planet game I had. And this was a great starting point, and also for the fund, the application that I had to write, I made some concept art. So this is what it looked like. There you have the solar system and your little planet. A character has arisen, a little robot named Curio. And this was our first attempt, which had great programming art, but I also had a lot of notes, which you can see in blue. And then I also made like a little 3D version of that to see if we can somehow turn it into that. So it's starting to look like something. We create a grid, there's gravity, some physics, so it's going well. First attempt of the asteroid belt, that could really use an update. So I give it a little update, that's better. Then I put in my own art a bit more, and there was a little breakthrough. Pepijn creates an algorithm to create from this grid like a really nice looking 3D mesh. So it's starting to look really great. Or at least I thought. So remember the co-working space that I had? Well, that fell apart. And so did a friendship of mine, and then accidentally also a relationship. And it all sounds like a great recipe for feeling a little bit depressed. And a lot of people, when they feel depressed, they really dive into their job and they put all their focus in that. And they become really productive. Well, that's not me. When I feel sad, I become completely useless. And that made me feel even more terrible, of course. And it took me a while to recover from that. And Pepijn, luckily, was able to progress the game whilst I was trying to fix this situation for myself. And luckily, it's also a very programming-heavy game. So it was okay that for a while there was no art or design being made because Pepijn could go ahead. And then I think what for me helped the most is realizing that I could just take some space to recover, and it's okay to not be productive for a second. So slowly, with baby steps, I integrated more art, and it started to take form again. And that's how slowly my motivation, my energy upped a little, and then we went back to making the prototype. And also, we hired a new programmer because it is really programming heavy, and we needed someone that understood game feel as well. So we hired Guillaume to do gameplay programming. We're moving along again. We're going to be close to finishing this prototype. We're prepping to show it at Amaze, which is a great event. Things are looking great. Still a lot to make, but oh no. Burnout. But this time it's Pepijn. He was working on 3 projects at the time. Absolute beast. But he shot me a message saying I need to take a break now. It's okay. Totally understand. Pepijn goes into recovery mode. But then I had to think of a really smart way where we didn't need all the systems, but we could still wrap up a nice prototype to show for the next step, which was full production. And I had to do it with only Guillaume, gameplay programmer. And somehow we did that. We wrapped up the gameplay, and it was just enough for me to create a really nice teaser trailer, which I think helped me a lot. So this is a year ago. Here was still 2D, the solar system. And this was really useful that I made that, because it gave a really nice idea of the feel of the game. And it raised some questions on like the gameplay that I could fill in like just by talking, or it just could leave it to the fantasy of the of the publisher or the fund. Yeah, so I would really recommend that. It had very little gameplay, but it did seem like an actual game. Yeah, Little Planet. At the time, Celine and Pepijn, and then recently Guillaume. So yeah, but then I was like, okay, that was pretty heavy. Production, I don't know anymore, because I was running into a lot of problems. First of all, I lost my technical programmer, so it meant I had to look for a new programmer. Guillaume can do a lot, but I mean, he can't program the entire game. Then the second problem was that the deadline of the full production fund was like a lot closer, and we were talking about a lot more money here, so it needed to be bigger and better. And this time I also had to write it alone, because Pepijn helped me with the last one. Then also, making such an experimental, like, playful game proved pretty difficult. It's very based on like intuitive gameplay, and it needs a lot of like play testing and testing if people understand, and a lot of things are like thrown out and you try something new. So it was quite a challenge at this point. Then also, the most difficult part had yet to come. We would have to finish the game and release it. And I mean, it's kind of hard doing all the bug fixing and polish. And we only just started this journey. Yeah, so I had an idea. I could just walk out. I could kill my darling, and I wasn't really afraid to. And I think it's really useful to know when to stop. But I think in some cases it's also really worth the effort to finish something. And it was someone else that made me realize that. So I went to the Dutch Game Awards, where I met up with my friend Adrian from Hidden Folks, and I told him about all these problems. And he was like, yeah, that seems really tough. You're in a pretty tough spot there. He thinks for a little bit, and then he goes like, but you know what, I think like you shouldn't really drop it. I think you should just release it. Finished or not, you should just get it out into the world. And I thought that was a really good point. It might be better to just have it there. And it reminded me of another trick I sometimes use, which is to imagine myself in the future. This is me in the future, super fashionable. And this future me has two versions. There's the version where I chose to kill the project, move on, maybe start a new project. I would probably be fine with that. She would never know what happened to Curiosmos, but whatever. Then there's also this version where I have finished Curiosmos. It might have become great, it might have really sucked, but it's there and it's on the market. And I was thinking about that, and I thought that would actually probably create new opportunities. I was also looking at a great opportunity to learn how to finish a project, because that is actually really difficult. And it might be a really useful skill for me to learn. And I know how to make use of a good opportunity. So there we go, we do a super crunch for this super thick document, and by now it could have been a nice little book. And I gave it my full 100%, and I think I really slam dunked it. In the meantime, I was also started looking for programmers, and also a producer, because why not? I'm actually quite the chaotic person, I got that feedback, and it's true. And I thought it might be useful to have someone that structurized it. And we actually got a lot of applications, and I had a lot of like people to choose from. So I succeeded, I found people. There you can see Guillaume, that is the gameplay programmer. You have Chris, the producer, in the middle, and then on the right you have Robin, our new technical programmer. So the fund goes through, we receive the news that we get the money, we can start production and finish this game. Champagne, everyone. The project doesn't die. So here's the fourth and final chapter. which is like about more of the learnings of directing this process and making this game. And some things that I think are important during game development that sometimes are not said enough. So I have a couple of like direction hot tips because I got asked this a lot actually. And it's about like how I picked and managed the team. So I think you need to pick your team really carefully. And what I usually look out for is not necessarily very much the skill, but also I really like an intrinsic enthusiasm about the project. So I ask them a lot like if they looked it up, if they know what they're making or going to work on, and if they like the concept. And I also think it's really important that they fit the energy of the rest of the team. Then the other thing I want to say is that everyone in my team has rev share, and I think this is really important because this makes everyone in the team feel like they have skin in the game. And so everyone has an interest in making this game a banger, because if it's a banger, then they'll profit from that as well. And it also creates a feeling of ownership, like this game is part of them as well. It's not only me and me telling them what to do, it's also a little bit theirs. I think it is important with rev share to be a bit careful, like don't over-promise things, like you have to do good expectation management. Talk about it a lot, just not hand it out immediately, just see how you work together and then think about like what is fair. Then I want to say like, Adrian taught me both the rev share thing and also the work hour thing. For everyone in my team, there's very flexible work hours. Everyone should work when they feel like working. And we actually all have a very different schedule, so it's almost like we're in different time zones, which can be difficult, but I think it's more important for them to work on the game when they really feel like it. It's also like more efficient. If you think about it from a production perspective, it's like more useful to pay the people for the hours when it's more, people are more productive when they feel like working. So it's more cost efficient, I think. And it creates a sense of trust, which I think is really healthy for the team. And that brings me to the last point, which is I do a lot of team building. I really love it. So I make them go to events with me. We went to a maze together, which was a really great bonding experience. And we also went to Gamescom together, and that was really nice. I made the programmers showcase the game, and then it was really nice to see that they started to have their own ideas on how to improve it. And that was really nice. It created a really good sense of unity, like we're in this together as well. And also made me see like how we react to stressful moments together. Turns out, it's actually, yeah, it works quite well. Then the next thing I want to talk about is this is the pit. And I see a lot of game developers fall into the pit after releasing a game. And I'm thinking a lot about this, and I think it usually happens when you invest like so much and you sacrifice everything for your project. You just work hours and you crunch and blah blah blah. But by the end of it, when it's released, you're either like extremely successful, or you're left with, yeah, I don't know, it's not that successful or whatever the success means to you. And it's just like gone, you're done, and there's a sense of nothingness. And I really understand, like I can see how that's kind of depressing. So I think it's important to prevent this pit. And I think the trick to do that is to really enjoy the process, because it is about the process. Game development can be like a lot of fun to do, especially as someone that does a lot of like other art forms. Game development is really special, it's really diverse, and it's also like working in a team together is great. So that's what I'm trying to do now, like really enjoy the process. And for me, what is really important is to go to events. I love events, like I go to GC, I would like to go to Reboot, a Maze of course. I'm here at Playtopia. And what I also really enjoy is to celebrate the big moments with my team. So we were able to announce at the Wholesome Direct, and it was just like a lot of fun. We buy a bottle of champagne and we drink on it. And if you really enjoy the process, then even if the game fails, you still kind of won. Like this super big learning curve for finishing and releasing a game. And I think that at this point, if it doesn't become a commercial success or like, I don't know, an artistic success, I still kind of won something there. I will be proud of it. So yeah, I think these are the ingredients to create your passion project. Like, go get yourself out there and create like opportunities and chances for luck to arise, and also know when to quit or maybe when to finish what you started, so you can create new opportunities. And really don't forget to appreciate the process and avoid the pit. So yeah, that was it. Thank you.